Okay, so this is part two. Let's hear what Bart has to say, and then I'll respond to it.
Well, in that case, James, because I know you're watching, I'm wrong, aren't I? Because the sun comes up in the east and goes down in the west, doesn't it? Not the other way around. Those are the facts. Whether I like those facts or not, whether I publish something that says it's so or otherwise, that doesn't change the fact that it is so. Unless, of course, I redefine east and west. Or other such
Remember, Bart, East and West doesn't exist, or actual existence. It can't even be proven.
mental gymnastics to make something so because I desperately want it to be so. I hope this is going up some flagpoles in terms of the way
It's not. What you're saying isn't going up any flagpoles.
that logic is being constructed here. It'll become clearer. Stick around. Richard, anything at this point?
I'm just keen to get into it. Let's just get into what he's got to say.
Let's crack on then, James. That's the other thing about James, is he doesn't actually crack on and get to the point.
That's false. We're already 30 minutes into this, and you haven't even gotten to the point yet.
In the field of low-grade acidosis.
Again, low-grade acidosis. Okay, we'll define that, James.
Well, I did in my publication that you know for over a year ago that I've published in this field.
Let's have a definition, a working definition, an operational definition. That's what scientists do.
Sure, did it already. So let's look at my publication. This is low-grade metabolic acidosis is a driver of chronic disease, a 21st century public health crisis. Defining metabolic acidosis. Acidemia, or too much acid in the blood, only occurs when the body's buffering capacity can no longer maintain a normal pH. A normal blood pH is considered 7.35 to 7.45. However, even at a normal blood pH, metabolic acidosis can occur. In fact, once the blood pH falls below 7.4, there is usually acid retention in the body in low-grade metabolic acidosis. However, the blood pH does not drop below the normal range until metabolic acidosis has become severe. Once this occurs, it is usually referred to as metabolic acidosis by the clinician. However, this is actually acidemia, or too much acid in the blood. Really, what we mean by acid is the hydronium ion. Thus, someone with a low blood pH has likely had low-grade metabolic acidosis for years or more likely decades. Low-grade metabolic acidosis is something that many people have in the Western world. It means there is no apparent or noticeable harms, but the body is retaining acid, depleting bicarb stores, and damage is occurring to numerous tissues in the body. Typically, with low-grade metabolic acidosis, the blood pH drops slightly, as does the bicarb levels, but they will still be in a normal range. Thus, if blood pH and or bicarb levels are at the lower end of normal, this is highly suggestive that someone has metabolic acidosis. With low-grade metabolic acidosis, the total blood buffering capacity is reduced, and thus a greater reliance on muscle, bone, and connective tissue will be required for the elimination of additional acid. The harms of low-grade metabolic acidosis increase with age and decreasing kidney function, as the kidney's ability to excrete the hydronium ions, aka the acid, goes down. The increase in the acid load in the body worsens kidney function over the long run. For example, chronic metabolic acidosis leads to nephron hypertrophy in the kidneys of animals. This is likely due to the toxic effect of ammonia has on kidneys. Metabolic acidosis can also lead to an increased loss of sodium and potassium in the urine, as well as an increased loss of water, risking dehydration. In addition, metabolic acidosis can cause magnesium and calcium loss out in the urine. So if you want a running definition, there you go. You can read my publication.
They're operationally defined terms. What does that mean? Because that's just words otherwise.
Well, I'm not going to run through that entire definition of low-grade metabolic acidosis because it requires a ton of nuance on what it actually means. Because most clinicians say someone has metabolic acidosis only when someone has metabolic acidemia. But acidosis occurs before acidemia. If you have acidemia, that's really bad.
We use the term acid, not acid excretion.
Right. The fact that you use a term, does that make that term correct? It's like saying...
Well... Technically, what's being excreted is ammonium and dihydrogen phosphate, which are weak acids because they are in dynamic equilibrium with monohydrogen phosphate and ammonia and hydronium ions, respectively. So ammonium is in dynamic equilibrium with ammonia plus the hydronium ions. So that is precisely why the urine becomes more acidic, is because they're in dynamic equilibrium. Most will be ammonium, but about 1% will be ammonia plus the hydronium ions. That is precisely why the urine becomes acidic. So you are excreting what are called weak acids, ammonium, because it's in dynamic equilibrium with ammonia and the hydronium ions. And you are excreting dihydrogen phosphate, which is in dynamic equilibrium with the hydrogen phosphate plus the hydronium ion. So most of it is being excreted as dihydrogen phosphate and ammonium, but some, a tiny bit, is the hydronium ions plus, ammonia, or the, not di, but mono hydrogen, aka hydrogen phosphate. So that's precisely why the urine is more acidic, because some of that is dissociated. It is the ammonium, some of it gets deprotonated, hence why it's a weak acid, hence why we call it not acid excretion. That's how most of the hydronium ions are being excreted as ammonium and as dihydrogen phosphate. And then a little bit is dissociated as actual hydronium ions, as I just stated. So that is the catch term that we use in the field, net acid excretion. And we define what that means, though. We define that you're actually measuring ammonium and you're measuring, dihydrogen phosphate, and then some can actually be excreted as acid, as uric acid. About at a urinary pH of 5, about 70% is actual uric acid versus urate and hydronium ions.
Atherogenic lipoproteins. That's a term that's thrown around all the time, isn't it?
Well, that's saying that term is assuming that all lipoproteins are atherogenic. Net acid excretion, we define what that means. So we're not saying that we don't state it's an atherogenic net acid excretion. So that's a terrible example that you're trying to say.
Correct and scientifically underpinned? No, it's a theology.
No, this is not a theology. You are excreting weak acids. Ammonium, you are excreting some hydronium ions, you are excreting some uric acid. This isn't theology. Okay, theology would be labeling something atherogenic lipoprotein. That would be theology. So don't conflate the two.
Just like this is, James.
False. False.
It's a theology.
No, it is not.
Sorry about it.
We can directly measure these things in the urine. So that net acid excretion is not a theology. That is just foolish to say. And it shows your complete lack of understanding of this field.
But you're actually excreting out, when you consume animal proteins, are weak acids?
No, you're not.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. You're excreting ammonium, which is in dynamic equilibrium with ammonia and hydronium ions. And you're excreting dihydrogen phosphate, which I already said, which is in dynamic equilibrium with the hydronium ion and the hydrogen phosphate.
Well, there is one that can exist.
Now you're talking about, if you are actually talking about an acid, a strong acid, then yeah, uric acid. And this, by the way, is something you admitted that I taught you here. You didn't realize that we actually do excrete uric acid, because I corrected you in one of my videos when you said we don't excrete acids. What you meant to say is we don't excrete strong acids, which are fully dissociated at physiological pHs. That's what you actually mean to say.
At physiological pH,
okay, right,
in small amounts, that being uric acid.
If you're actually defining something, it depends on what your definition is. If you consider ammonium a weak acid because it's in dynamic equilibrium with ammonia and hydronium ions, then you can say net acid excretion if you consider ammonium a weak acid. It all depends on what your definition is, Bart. And clearly, every textbook considers ammonium and dihydrogen phosphate weak acids. So yeah, you're completely false here. Nothing that you're saying is proving me wrong. You're splitting hairs, and even what you're saying doesn't make any sense. You would have to basically differentiate between a strong acid and a weak acid, because we are excreting weak acids. And we are excreting hydronium ions, which is what makes the urine more acidic.
There are no other acids excreted.
If you're talking about strong acids, then there are no other acids. And you didn't even know that until I corrected you. You had no clue that the human body actually excretes uric acid out in the urine. I had to teach you that. And that's because you don't understand this field.
This is a falsehood.
No, it's not. Nothing's a falsehood here. What you're trying to say, to state that I'm stating a falsehood, that is... See, people that don't really understand will actually take your word for what you're saying and think what you're saying is true. So there's a difference between excreting weak acids and strong acids, and you're allowed to use a catch term, net acid excretion, and that does not mean that it's a strong acid being excreted, just because you state the word acid.
The basic physiochemistry of...
You see, you don't even understand the basic physiochemistry. You don't even understand what's being excreted in the urine. which you even said in your last video that I did have something right that you did not know before, that uric acid does get excreted as an actual acid.
What's going on here can be easily determined if you go and look at the pKa values, or the Ka values if you like, for various organic.
And this is another thing you got wrong and that I had to prove you that you were incorrect about. You've never proven me incorrect on anything. I proved that you didn't know that we excreted uric acid, and you admitted that. Also, you state that if the pKa is 2 points above the pH, then ammonia won't exist. Well, that was false, right? Because since 1989, we've used gas electrodes to prove that ammonia exists in the urine in humans. You stated ammonia isn't produced in the kidneys, and there's no ammonia that exists because it's 2 points or higher, the pKa of ammonium, compared to the pH. But what you didn't realize is it does actually exist. It's just at a very small amount, about 1% or less, if the pKa is 2 points or higher above the pH, but it still exists. And so that was another thing I definitively proved you wrong. You stated ammonia doesn't exist because of that 2-point difference, but actually it does exist at about 1%, and I proved you incorrect on that as well.
Acids, you are going to find that we are not excreting acids. This is a falsehood. A spade is a spade.
No, it's not. We're excreting a weak acid. If you consider ammonium a weak acid, then we're excreting a weak acid. If you consider dihydrogen phosphate a weak acid, which every textbook does, you're excreting a weak acid. So, and regardless, what does that have to do with anything? What does that honestly have to do with anything?
And being accurate about the way you describe phenomena.
It is accurate. There's a difference between a weak acid and a strong acid. So you're making no point here.
Is a scientific responsibility.
Correct. And your responsibility, you didn't even realize that we excrete uric acid. You didn't even realize that ammonia exists in the urine. It's been tested through many times since 1989. So that you don't even understand that ammonia exists in the body. And you're nitpicking me over, is it a weak acid or a strong acid? Which you don't even make that point clear here.
What James is doing is theologically banging his Bible.
False! You are theologically banging your Bible with the Stewart model, which actually proves me correct in a way. Technically, Stewart model is a construct, so it can't prove anything right. But if we're going based off of you saying that it proves me wrong, then I'm going to show you actually how it works and actually proves me right. But also the law of electroneutrality, which is unassailable, proves this correct as well.
His acid Bible. Okay? I hope this is clear.
It's not okay, Bart. It's not okay that you don't know that we actually excrete uric acid. It's not okay that you don't even realize that ammonia is produced in the body. That's not okay.
For those that want to understand,
you don't even understand basic physiology
and the actual underpinning physics and the
yeah, let's go listen to you. Thinks that ammonia can't be formed in the body and doesn't even understand what acids get excreted out in the urine. Yeah, let's listen to you.
The reason I'm saying what I'm saying, the actual science,
oh, really? The actual science? Do tell, please. If you want to look at the actual science, you can see it right here. Here's where basically ammonium will split to ammonia. And you can see it here as well. When basically glutamine gets broken down, you get ammonium and then you form some ammonia. And ammonium and ammonia both get into the lumen of the kidneys. And you also basically here too, what this is showing here is the ammonium that actually hits the collecting duct. 80% of it comes from ammonia. And you said ammonia doesn't even exist in the body. You're an absolute buffoon. You have no idea what you're talking about. It's ridiculous. It's honestly ridiculous.
Unassailable, demonstrable science based
on... Unassailable that I'm correct and you're wrong here. Unassailable. Two things on basic physiology you don't even understand.
First principles.
First principles of what? The law of electroneutrality will prove me correct, which I'll show you in a second. And Stewart model is a construct, but still proves me right. And I'll show you that in a second too.
Like the laws of conservation, etc. Go and have a look at my YouTube channel. There, as I said, there are
Please have a look at his YouTube channel and then look at my response videos.
about 12 videos on this boy
Yeah, and I responded to every single one of yours showing why you're wrong.
and his videos, responses to his responses to my responses to his responses.
Right, you started this over a year ago. It's just been a back and forth debacle ever since.
Just to my responses. You'll laugh your heads off. It's hilarious.
You will. You'll laugh.
Ammonium, which is technically it's an ion.
Ammonium is not an acid, James.
It's a weak acid because it's in the flux between ammonium. Most of that will exist as ammonium, but it is in that dynamic equilibrium with ammonia and hydronium ions. What do you not understand about this? Hence why it is a weak acid, because it can deprotonate. It loses the proton. Some of that is lost. And same with dihydrogen phosphate. That's why we call it acid excretion. Are we done here?
And he's just said
Because you're confusing a weak acid and a strong acid.
that technically it's not an acid. Well, why call it an acid?
Because that's what the textbooks call it. A weak acid.
It isn't one. Ammonium NH4+.
Is considered a weak acid. Anybody look it up. Look up ammonium, look up dihydrogen phosphate, and see if it is considered a weak acid or not.
Where's the acid? Richard, help me out here. I'm confused. I wish I wasn't so stupid. I wish I was as smart
God, none of this proves me wrong, okay? So just get over this topic.
as James is. Because if I was as clever as James, I could call things that they're not and get away with it.
Well, you do. What you do is you get away with saying ammonia doesn't exist in the body and that we don't excrete acid. And I had to tell you both were wrong.
I could
Because you don't understand this topic. You've only ever published on the Stewart model.
call ammonium an acid if I want, couldn't I?
Yeah, you could. You could call it a weak acid, which is exactly what it is.
It isn't. Yeah. Okay. All right. Good.
And also what's called H2PO4, which is dihydrogen phosphate. That's another weak acid or ion. But essentially,
But which, James? Because
Well, that's what the textbooks refer to it as, a weak acid, because it can deprotonate.
an acid is not ionized. That's what defines it as an acid. Once it's ionized, it's no longer an acid. It's now two ions, an anion and a cation, neither of which is an acid. You might
An acid, what they consider an acid is if it can contribute hydronium ions to a solution. That's what's considered an acid. So because H2PO4 can dissociate and exactly acidify the body by contributing and creating hydronium ions and acidifying the body, it is considered a weak acid because when it dissolves in solution and dissociates, right, it can contribute to the acid load, which is the hydronium ion. Just enough with this nonsense of nomenclature.
I think I'm just splitting hairs here, but I'm not.
You are splitting hairs. This is stupid.
Because James is telling us
Because we're not splitting hairs is you don't even realize that things that exist in the body you say don't exist, like ammonia and uric acid. That's bad. Okay, you can fight over the argument of should you consider this a weak acid or not. That's stupid. You don't even realize that substances that exist, you're stating that they don't exist. And that's just complete lack of knowledge versus nomenclature semantics.
creating a bunch of acid. No, we're not.
Well, if you define the term acid as hydronium ions, which I have many, many times, then yeah, that is the acid. The hydronium ion is what acidifies the body. And so if consuming animal protein increases hydronium ions, then that is the acid load. I've defined it as that. So it is what it is. That is my working definition.
With the exception of a small
If you don't
amount of
like it, who cares? Okay, that's my definition. But you can't just state that something that exists like ammonia and uric acid doesn't exist and we don't excrete it out in the urine.
uric acid. Which, by the way, if it's
You don't just get to make up stuff.
an acid, i.e. unprotonated, then its exact effect on the pH of the solution to which it's included, none.
That is precisely why it's a weak acid, because it will deprotonate and contribute to the hydronium ion load. You absolute buffoon.
None at all. The only things that have an effect on the acid level or the pH it's parsimoniously described as in any fluid pool anywhere in the universe at any time, there are only 4 control variables that can have an effect on the pH. No others, only 4. And they are the temperature of the fluid, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide acting on that fluid at its surface, the net values in milliequivalents of all the strongly dissociated ions of all kinds, positive and negative.
Okay, so first of all, this is going to prove why exactly I'm correct. So you don't even understand how this works. But basically, when you consume animal proteins that are high in sulfur-containing amino acids, cysteine and methionine, methionine gets converted to cysteine. About 70% of those sulfur-containing amino acids get oxidized in the liver, and you form sulfate. This is a -2 anion, which you just stated anions can independently control pH. And this is why exactly animal protein acidifies the body. The Stewart model proves this correct, that this model will, based on your definition, independently raise the pH to a degree, a consistency, right? A consistent degree, something that you will see time and time again. Because the law of electroneutrality demands that if you are forming sulfate molecules, which have a -2, so you're contributing to the anion concentration of the pool, you have to form 2 positively charged molecules to offset that to maintain electroneutrality. And that's exactly what happens. That's why for every sulfate molecule being formed here, you're forming 2 hydronium ions. That is why, this is precisely why animal protein acidifies the body through the anions. And I remember one video, and Bart, you should know this by now. You should know that by you saying that the very groundwork that I'm basing this off of is incorrect because Stewart proves me wrong, you should know that Stewart actually proves this correct because it is based on the production of a negatively charged molecule, forming 2 positively charged hydronium ions. So the Stewart model definitely substantiates this, but it's really the law of electroneutrality, which is unassailable, which proves this correct. I remember one video too, you had stated, well, the body can handle a couple sulfate molecules. You're producing 7 sextillion sulfate molecules. So that is 7 times 10 to the 21. That's how many sulfate molecules are being formed here. And so this isn't just like you're forming 2 sulfate molecules. You're forming, a trillion is 10 to the 12th power. This is 10 to the 21st power multiplied by 7. That's how many sulfate, and you're getting twice that. You're getting 14 times that. So 7 times 10 to the 21, this is 14 times 10 to the, or 1.4 times 10 to the 22 of hydronium ions. So instead of 7 sextillion, this is 14 sextillion hydronium ions. Now, we have 5 times that amount of molecules of bicarbonate, so we have enough to buffer that from 50 grams of protein. So 50 grams of protein from animal foods will create 14 sextrillion of these molecules. So it's not like you're forming just a little bit of acid here. You're forming over 100,000 times more hydronium ions than what's in our entire blood eating 50 grams of protein. It just has to be, we have to buffer that. It's a tremendous acid load. I'm considering this the acid load. Bart, if this hasn't gone up your flagpole yet, this is crazy. So this is the acid load that I'm referring to. The hydronium ions caused due to the negatively charged molecules that you're dumping into the pool now. So this is, Stewart proves it correct. You just stated that there are only 4 levers. This is the 3rd lever you just stated, right? All positively and negatively charged ions. And there's again 7 times sextillion of these, which is 7 times 10 to the 21st molecules, which is way more than a trillion sulfate molecules. And same with here, same with hydronium ions. So you're definitely contributing to the negatively charged load, and hence has to be offset by the positively charged load. So your Stewart model and the laws of electroneutrality prove this process correct. I mean, I hope this goes up your flagpole. And you owe me an apology then, because if you finally understand this, then you can state that if you truly believe that the Stewart model can prove anything, which technically it can't, because again, it's a construct, the law of electroneutrality proves this correct. But you basically have to apologize to state, oh, well, okay, so if it's truly based on the 7 sextillion sulfate molecules being released from 50 grams of protein, well, then he does actually have a good point. That all of those double the hydronium ions, because 2 hydronium ions are produced per sulfate, then he actually does have a point. That is valid. Now, technically, you don't even need, though, to have it doesn't have to be an independent driver. So the Stewart model will prove that this is an independent driver of pH, and that you will get a predictable change in pH due to this, right? That's his definition of demanding what is required. That's not what is required, because you can take, bicarbonate, and he believes bicarbonate is a dependent variable. So just because it's dependent, it can't have any type of meaningful effect. We know that bicarbonate will significantly increase bicarb levels and significantly increase pH. Like, you can throw your pH to 7.5 or higher taking sodium bicarbonate, and you can't absorb sodium on its own. Because of the laws of electroneutrality. Sodium has to come in with a negatively charged molecule. It will come in with a negatively charged chloride, because most of the bicarb gets dissociated, right, as CO2 when you ingest it. So sodium and chloride are coming in. So it's not the sodium that's creating some type of change in pH that's being absorbed. So it wouldn't be that. So it's due to the increase in bicarbonate that is changing the pH. So just because something's a dependent variable doesn't mean that the Stewart model disproves it. The Stewart model also, there's a fifth lever that the Stewart model doesn't even talk about, and that's the kidneys. The kidneys, if you have decreased kidney function, that will change the pH. Okay, the Stewart model doesn't even state kidneys, because the Stewart model isn't looking at the human body or physiology or looking at dietary acid loads. So the Stewart model can't prove this incorrect at all. So you owe me an apology that, first of all, the Stewart model can't prove me wrong. Second, if you're thinking that it can, then based on its own definition, it proves that this is a reliable, independent, predictable change in pH due to an increase in a negatively charged molecule at a very, very significant concentration of molecules. We're done.
And the net milliequivalent value of the negative anions expressed on the surfaces of all the various proteins. Nothing else.
That's false, not nothing else. Kidney function also determines pH, does it not? The rate at which you breathe, your lungs also. Again, the Stewart model doesn't take into account physiology, nor does it take into account dietary components that contribute to acidosis. It never even thought to take into account dietary basically effects and how the liver will oxidize certain proteins to form negatively charged sulfates, which will form hydronium ions. Stewart never even thought about that. Not a single one of his publications ever took into account dietary effects. So nice try, and even if you look at the model of what I just stated, here's the negatively charged anion, which the Stewart model does say is an independent factor. And so, again, you're just wrong on all accounts. The Stewart model never discussed dietary acid loads.
Those are the 4 independent variables.
False. The kidneys, the lungs are other independent variables, and so is your dietary intake, because your dietary intake can form negatively charged molecules, which will then create the hydronium ions, which acidify the body. So false.
That control the pH of a biological aqueous solution.
Wrong again.
This has been demonstrated.
What? No. The Stewart model has never been proven in any experimental study. First of all the experimental studies have actually shown it to be incorrect, whether it's flawed or not. So there's no proof that it's actually even correct. And it's not based on a human body.
Not through experimentation, because you can't.
Oh, you can't?
Actually.
Actually, you should be able to, if you control for certain factors.
This is metaphysical.
It's metaphysical. I can't prove I'm right, but I can't prove that my theory's right. Just believe me, it's metaphysical.
Demonstrated by the late Peter Stewart, according to application.
But the Peter Stewart, in none of his publications, ever stated that consuming animal protein can't lead to a significant acid load. He never stated that that's not possible. And again, if you're using anion formation as a true driver of pH, then I'm correct. And you owe me a formal an apology.
Of the assertions that I've just made to first principles, laws of conservation.
No, the law of electroneutrality is a first principle. Stewart model is not. It's a construct. You don't even understand this.
known laws of physics. They're all unassailable.
No. The law of electroneutrality is unassailable. The Stewart model, again, it's called a model because it's a construct. Stewart created it and never took into account kidneys and never took into account dietary factors that can affect acid-base balance. So nice try. Anytime you tap on Stewart model now and say that from the fundamentals, from the ground up, I'm wrong, now you know you're incorrect.
These are the facts with the James law.
The facts are you are now been proven incorrect on many occasions, on many things that I've proven you wrong on, including this one.
Likes those facts or not. And it turns
I
out
don't like them because they're not facts. Turns out that only the law of electroneutrality is unassailable from what you're talking about.
That with respect to these facts and James liking them,
I don't like, because you're calling a construct, a model, a fact. You don't even realize it.
it's not. He doesn't like them.
You don't even understand that.
Nonetheless, they remain factual.
Nonetheless, you're wrong.
Just like I don't like the fact.
Just like I don't like the fact that you state ammonia doesn't exist when it does, and that you state we don't excrete acid out in the urine when we excrete uric acid. And if you also consider ammonium and dihydrogen phosphate weak acids, which is in the definition of a net acid excretion, whether you like it or not, it is true. So move along.
That at some point I'm going to die, just like everybody. And before that,
Hopefully this debate dies sooner rather than later.
I'm going to pay a lot of tax. I don't like those things. Should I ignore those things entirely and pretend that they're not so?
I guess we can pretend ammonia is informed in the body and we don't excrete uric acid.
No, James, I should not be
No,
doing that.
you shouldn't.
I should be telling
Exactly.
people the truth.
Exactly, you should be telling people the truth, which is why I'm going to continue to correct you. You are definitely a Dunning-Kruger. You definitely think you know more than you actually do.
Okay?
It's laughable. I mean, you've self-proclaimed yourself as an idiot savant. That goes to show you what ego you have. I see the idiot part. I don't see the savant part.
I've also been publishing on what's called low-grade acidosis.
Again, so you've been publishing on something that
Yeah, exactly. This is what makes me an expert on the topic, that I've been researching it for years, that I've been publishing on it for years. You have not. Exactly. So if you're going to critique me for actually researching and publishing in this field, that is ridiculous.
you're calling low-grade acidosis.
I'm not calling it that. Many other papers have come before me on low-grade acidosis. I did not invent this topic. This topic was first published around 1911. Okay, so it's been over 100 years.
Are you going to define that for us, James?
I did in my publication. But you like to waste people's time, so I had to read the definition from the publication of mine.
And if so, is it going to have anything to do with acid? Because acid...
In the publication in every single one of my videos, I have stated what the acid load is. You've seen this figure. You've critiqued many videos of mine where I show this figure. This is what I and others, this is not my figure. This is from Reamer, Thomas Reamer, who's an expert in this field, considers the hydronium ions acid. That is, we call it acid because that is what is acidifying the body. We're not stating that this is a strong acid, like this is using the definition of a strong acid. Of course not. Because this is what would form when a strong acid is dissociated, right? So, again, it's nomenclature semantics. This is foolish.
Cannot affect pH. Because acid wasn't one of those four things, was it? That I've just listed.
Again, this is just ridiculous.
No.
This has been known for over 100 years, and there
have been a lot of things that have been believed for many hundreds of years that aren't correct.
Yeah, we've known that the body makes ammonia, and you're still saying it doesn't.
See how this is what I'm talking about with this book?
See how this is what I'm talking about with you. Definitively, I've proven you wrong about ammonia and uric acid. You trying to nitpick me on semantics of weak acid, net acid excretion doesn't prove me wrong. It just means our definitions are different. Or you're thinking I'm saying something that I'm not. I'm not actually meaning that you're excreting a strong acid. Or, however you're interpreting it.
Boy, James, he completely lacks the scientific wherewithal to actually put together an argument that's unassailable.
False.
that will actually
Exactly. Your content is not unassailable.
stand up to refutation.
Yours doesn't stand up to refutation. You've even admitted I've proven you wrong. Go and check out one of his videos where he said James had a good point about uric acid that we actually do excrete it. Go check that out. And check out the ammonia, too, that he said doesn't form because the pKa of ammonium is 9.25.
Because you don't see people making videos responding to me saying this, that, and the other thing.
What do you mean? I do. I respond to every single one of your videos and destroy you every time, just like this one.
And correcting it every 3 seconds.
And I'm correcting you every 3 seconds.
Like I do with others?
False. See the ego? See the ego that he has? You don't see, I'm the only one that can correct people every 3 seconds. That's the ego. He's the one that actually has the ego. He's the one that started this. And I have to respond to him because he has such a big ego, and he's still going at me because he knows that he hasn't smashed me and that I'm still smashing him. That's why over a year he's still creating videos, tracking down me, going on podcasts, looking at videos from 4 years ago trying to disprove me.
Why is that?
Do you think? Because his ego's hurt and he knows it. And that's why he's been on this tirade for over a year.
You don't need to blow smoke up my ass, but
Trust me, I won't.
I wouldn't do such a thing.
I know you wouldn't. You have too much integrity. It's because
You have no integrity from the things that you've said about me, making basically lies that I'm just doing this to sell calcium supplements. I didn't even talk about my carb supplements till like 4 years after my publications. So I published a couple of review papers on acidosis in 2021. And I had been taking bicarbonate and citrate supplements, but I knew that if I told people that that's what I was doing, that they would say that I'm just saying this to promote a supplement. So I didn't. But after like years, I felt it was unfair to not tell my followers that this is what I am doing to offset the acid load, that I do eat a good amount of animal protein, but that this is what I'm doing to offset it. It didn't feel right. But if it was something like that I had wanted to do strictly to promote a supplement, why would I wait multiple years before I even stated that I take it? And what's crazy is across this whole screen is your supplement company that you promote. Like your whole shtick is to get followers, which is what you've said, to drive them to this supplement. You sell supplements, so it's like the pot calling the kettle black.
Because, boys and girls, I make sure that what comes out of my mouth
You
is
do.
correct.
False. You do not make sure what comes out of your mouth is correct. As I've already shown in numerous instances where you've been wrong.
Before it comes out of my mouth.
False.
And unassailable.
Don't. I do. And that's why I have to correct you.
Why do I do that? Because I spent 20 years in academia.
You might have spent 20 years in academia, but I guarantee you I've spent more time looking at acid-base balance than you. And I'm the only one here that is published on dietary acidosis. You have not. So I'm the expert on this topic. You aren't. And that's just the facts.
Academia, having to defend myself against much scarier characters.
Oh, who's really scary in academia? Who's super scary in academia? Tell me who's super scary.
In terms of their academic background, etc.
Oh, really? Please tell me who's got more publications on nutrition than me. I have like 250 plus publications just on PubMed alone on nutrition. So who are all these scarier people that you're facing versus me?
Than this clown here.
What if I said you could lose 8 pounds without eating food like this? Factor is my favorite hack for losing weight sustainably.
That's the difference. And it's
False.
important. A scientist calls a spade a spade.
No, we call ammonia, and we don't pretend like it doesn't exist.
And make sure
Gas electrodes have proven the existence of ammonia in humans in urine. Go look it up, starting in 1989.
that what they're saying
Absolute buffoon.
actually stacks up. And James's idea that eating meat, organs, and fat will dissolve your bone.
Never said it dissolves your bones. You can go to the pinned tweet on my X account, and I list negative calcium balance, the increased breakdown of bone, decreased bone formation, but I don't say that it, melts bones.
Bones does not stack up. We'll get to it. when
Yes, we will.
he gets to it.
Several metabolic ward studies.
Several metabolic
Correct.
ward
Several
studies. Great.
metabolic
Cite
ward
those
studies.
for us, James.
I will.
And I'll show you what's wrong with them.
You didn't even read the Bellevue study. You didn't even know that they actually measured the calcium in the food. You called me a liar for stating that. I'm going to show screenshots of you being completely wrong. Again, this is just proof that you don't even look at the studies and that you state false facts about me.
In terms of their ability to make any kind of decent scientific inference regarding cause or effect in any aspect of anything whatsoever. James is under the illusion that good quality science is being done with respect to human health outcomes.
No, I'm not talking about human health outcomes. I'm talking about a balance of a mineral called calcium, which can be shown in metabolic ward studies when you control for all food that's taken into account. When basically what they would do is they would cut a piece from one part of the animal off and cut the opposing piece on the other side of the animal. And they would create duplicates of the meals that were given to Stephenson and Anderson. They would homogenize it, they would ash it, they would, dissolve it, and then measure the calcium content in the food. They actually measured what they were eating. So they duplicated exactly what they ate. They weighed the food, etc. So when you know exactly how much calcium they're consuming to a very, very close degree, and you do 24-hour urine collections in a metabolic lock and key, then you can get a very, very close, basically, measurement of their balance. Now, it's actually somewhat of an underestimation of their calcium balance because they didn't realize that calcium is also lost through sweat, which they did not measure. So if anything, it would be an underestimation of their calcium balances. But regardless, the methods used to basically, ash the food and measure the calcium only has up to a 5 or 10% error, which I'll show you in a second. So they were consuming around 100 milligrams of calcium. So at worst case, they were actually consuming 110 milligrams and, maybe 90 milligrams versus the 100. But that is Paul's in comparison. Let's say it did have the 10% error. They were excreting in the urine at the start 350 milligrams of calcium and were in, hundreds of milligrams of negative calcium balance. That by the end of 1 year, Stephenson and Anderson they were losing 175 to 185 milligrams of calcium every single day. So 5 or 10 milligram calcium difference in an error, let's say, from the methods that were used to measure the calcium in the food would clearly not have any type of meaningful effect where the negative calcium balance is no longer negative, because you're talking about at most 10 milligram difference, whereas they were still 175 milligrams of negative calcium balance every single day. So what Bart is trying to say is that there's no good metabolic ward studies proving on hard health outcomes. Am I talking about hard health outcomes? Am I talking about people having heart attacks? No, I'm not. I'm talking about negative calcium balance. And the metabolic ward studies can prove that, and there are 3 of those. And in the Bellevue study, they came back into the metabolic ward at month 11 under the lock and key using the same duplicate methods to measure the calcium intake, look at the calcium in the urine for 24 hours. So Anderson got 3 weeks of calcium balances at the 11th month mark, and Stephenson got 8 days worth, and they were still in negative calcium balance. And they also had, according to Stephenson, they had to go back to the hospital on a weekly or bi-weekly basis to get urine, and the acetone levels showed that they were eating a very, very low carb diet. And again, this is something that Stephenson wanted to prove. He was a pro-meat advocate. It'd be like Sean Baker going into a metabolic ward study and trying to prove this, and then out for 8 months as if he's going to then start eating a lot of carbs. He's not going to do that. He's trying to prove this correct. Stephenson was trying to prove that you could eat nothing but meat and be healthy, because he did that for like 6 or 7 years, eating mostly meat with the Inuit. And Anderson did that for about a year with him over the 9-year course in the Arctic that Stephenson explored. So this was proposed by Stephenson. He wanted to go into the metabolic ward to prove that you could be fine eating an all meat diet. So why would he come off of it? And we know he didn't, though, because they had urine tests to ensure that the acetone levels were elevated, right? And so that the carb intake was, extremely low. And so those are also in the paper as well. So you clearly have not read the Bellevue study. You think it was poorly controlled. How was it poorly controlled? It was lock and key they couldn't go anywhere without being supervised by a nurse or doctor for the periods that they were locked down. So it was a well-controlled, well-measured for calcium intake and balance. And that has been proven then that we have a 1-year study, actually slightly over 1 year, that you're not in positive calcium balance. We don't know when it ends. So why would you take the risk and not try to offset the acidosis and the negative calcium balance? I mean, it's your funeral.
Comes. What have you been smoking, James? There are no good, well-controlled.
False. The Bellevue study was a good, well-controlled study, and it had the capabilities of determining if those 2 individuals were in calcium balance. And then there's 2 other metabolic ward studies, which I can put on the screen as well, that show the exact same thing. And then there's 13 other human clinicals that aren't metabolic wards, but are human clinicals that show the exact same thing. It's my pinned tweet as well on Twitter, and I've done numerous videos covering this topic, which you've never responded to the clinical studies that I actually went over in my YouTube. That's telling too. From a year ago, there's a 51-minute video that I went through all of these studies showing the negative calcium balances.
Well,
so why did you not go after those? I wonder why.
Conducted, disciplined, scientific, experimental, interventional studies that can inform us about cause and or effect as that relates to human health outcomes.
Right, but we're not talking about a human health outcome. We're talking about calcium balance, which can be shown from a metabolic ward study.
Regarding, any intervention of any kind, dietary or otherwise.
So this is nonsensical right here.
Not one exists anywhere in the literature. And to suggest that they do, all that does is reduce your scientific credibility.
No, what I'm going to do is show you on the screen from screenshots of the actual papers discussing the Bellevue study that you've never even read it before.
Near zero, because what you're saying is near enough is good enough.
You don't know what I'm saying because you've never even read the studies that I'm referring to.
In that case, look, we can't do good science, but there is this other stuff. And we'll just call it randomized metabolic ward lock-in studies, because that sounds technical and good.
Well, that's exactly what it was.
And people will just believe that because...
No, people will believe you. I have to show now on the screen, because you're about to say that what I'm saying is false, about them actually measuring the calcium content of the foods. So now I'm going to have to prove you wrong again and show that you were lying again. And so if I can catch you lying on this, what other things have you lied about? We know you lied about me promoting calcium supplements. I don't know if you're lying about ammonia or you just don't even realize that it exists and that it's been proven via gas electrodes. I really don't know. And I would assume you just had no clue that uric acid, it does get excreted because you don't understand this field and topic.
I've published a lot of articles.
Yeah, precisely why I know more on this topic than you do.
No, James, they won't. You want to say several metabolic ward studies.
I will put them on the screen.
Do you cite those? And
I will.
Be prepared to come and face a scientist like myself.
I am. I'm facing you right now. I'm about to prove you wrong.
To actually litigate the studies that you want to tap as being absolute proof of your posit, to see whether those studies in fact do support your posit. Because the sad fact of the matter is, boys and girls, the answer is no, they don't.
False. How can you say that when you've never even read the studies? Or if you did, you didn't actually obtain and absorb what the heck you were reading.
They are fuller of holes than your average kitchen.
No, you are full of holes.
And colander are these studies that James likes to tap.
False.
He's obsessed with 4 or 5 studies. I know.
I'm sorry. That's how many we have. Metabolic wards, at least. We have about 13 other ones.
Which ones he's going to tap when he does tap them.
No, you don't, because you haven't even read them. And I did send them to you, too, in an email. That's probably why you do know them. So I don't even know how you could not have read what I sent you.
It's the same ones every time, even though I have personally among...
Well, I'm sorry. And until someone does a 20th study, we're stuck with the 13 plus the 3 metabolic ward. We're stuck with the 16 that I know of so far. How many more? What is there's some magic number that if there's 30 or something, then it's a true statement. If you have multiple metabolic ward studies that were clinical studies, many of them randomized controlled, just weren't metabolic ward.
Others debunked those studies as being of any value whatsoever prognostically. I don't know how many times. A fact that James just continues to ignore because it's inconvenient.
No, I'm not ignoring anything. You continue to ignore the studies I had sent you in an email, and and not read them. You're the one ignoring the science.
And he still bangs his chest and says, I've proven Bart K wrong.
No, false. You're the one saying you've proven me wrong, and I have to say that's incorrect. I'm not saying that I've proven you wrong. On certain things I have, like the existence of ammonia and that we excrete uric acid. Sure. I'll state what I can actually prove. You can prove that ammonia exists through gas electrodes, and you can prove that uric acid actually exists by measuring it. Things you can measure, I can prove you wrong.
By tapping these studies. No, you haven't, James.
Yeah, I have. Because if you actually have read it, Bart, you'd realize that they can say exactly what I state that they can.
You want to prove me wrong? Come and litigate those
No, I'm going to prove you wrong right now.
studies with me face to face. Guess why he's not doing that?
Because you would never give me the time to be able to do this. So I'm going to show on the screen the studies.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
I've got to sort that. I need
You
to.
don't have to sort it. I'm going to sort it right now.
Dude, that'd be awesome. He won't do it, I promise you.
I don't need to. I can do it right here. I don't need to.
The boy
And I can't wait to hear your response to this.
lacks the intestinal fortitude and the external male characteristics required
Yes, I lack the external male characteristics. Okay.
to front up to such a challenging situation.
I wonder if we established some rules in regards to,
Well, there be the list would be really long, Rich.
what we can say when we can speak and things. I wonder if he'd come on and we could argue.
Well, I mean, Bart would probably break the first rule within 10 seconds. So just because you set rules doesn't mean he's going to follow them.
One against the other, but
I doubt he'll do it under any circumstances.
let's see what we can do.
Yeah, because I actually, like when I'm doing my own thing on my own channel, I use very short words and I call James all sorts of things.
You
Quite
do.
rightly in my
Correct,
mind.
you
I'm not
do.
doing it just because I want to be.
Yeah, that's the only. See, this has been over a year of him calling me a buffoon. I mean, I normally I would never speak like this, but like after over a year of this guy just constantly calling me names, saying I lack like the male like characteristic, external characteristics. You know what I mean? Like one can only take so much.
That guy, although that does help with views, let's face it, it's a hook.
It does.
It's quite fun. It's quite fun for me to do. But actually, I really genuinely view this boy's lack of scientific acumen, rigor.
And I actually view your lack of actually reading any of the papers. Have you ever actually even read a single paper on dietary acidosis and how it works? I don't think you have, because you don't even understand how it works. You don't even know the mechanisms. You wouldn't even be stating that the Stewart model proves me wrong if you had known how it actually even works. And so what I really think is it's the other way around. You keep saying that I lack the rigor. You haven't even researched this field, and you have to admit that. How many hours have you actually spent researching dietary acid load? How many papers have you read, etc.? I have read hundreds. I have spent hundreds and hundreds of hours researching and publishing on this topic. I guarantee you haven't spent more than 10 hours looking at dietary acid load papers. You have only published on the Stewart model of acidosis. Prove me wrong. How much time have you actually spent reading the literature on this?
I view that with a very, very dim.
And if you state that you spent a long time, how did you not know that the Bellevue study actually measured the calcium content of the foods that they ate?
I think he's like, despite his very, very impressive publication list, absolutely he has an impressive publication list. Nonetheless, his actual competence, especially in the areas of basic physiochemical.
In what way? Name a single thing that I have gotten wrong. You've taken things out of context or grabbed videos later on where I might have said sulfuric acid, but the previous video I literally stated that sulfuric acid doesn't actually exist. It exists as the sulfate anion and the hydronium cations. And in my publication, also as well, which was in 2021, 3 years before you even decided to critique me, I state that hydrogen ions, protons actually exist as hydronium ions. It's the first video you critiqued me on, I had stated that they actually exist as hydronium ions. But I published this back in 2021, 4 years before or 3 years before you even started, coming after my videos on acidosis. And I state that the sulfuric acid literally exists as sulfate anions and hydrogen cations. So it's like you try to act like I don't know what I'm talking about, like I don't know the physiology, but I do, because I can point to publications of mine years before that I know what I'm talking about. Anyone can say something out of context, or they've described something in more detail in a video before, and then moving forward, they're just going to use that term, right? So show me where I've actually been wrong, where I didn't truly understand that it doesn't exist as sulfuric acid, where I really believed that it existed as sulfuric acid. That can't be true, because I published it 3 years before you made your video that how it actually exists. And one of your main things is you think that I didn't know about hydronium ions. Why would I have published it? I'm the lead author here. I did most of the work on this paper. I'm the one that did all the research and wrote the initial draft on this paper, which I do for most of my papers. If I'm the lead author on the paper, I've typically done 90% of the work. So again, what exactly have I actually gotten incorrect? Tell me. Because we know for a fact you've gotten ammonia incorrect, that it does exist and you stated it doesn't. Anyone can look up, does ammonia exist, and how can you actually test that it exists, right? Via gas electrodes. So that's proven you've been wrong about ammonia. Proven that you've been wrong that we don't excrete acid. You admitted that I proved you wrong about that we do excrete uric acid. So those are two things that I've definitively proven you wrong on. You can't say the same thing. I've yet to hear anything that you've said where I've been definitively proven wrong. So that's the difference, in my opinion.
Nature of pH control, which is what we're talking about today. This boy has not the first clue.
False. I do. That's the whole point. You don't have a first clue of even how this works.
Of actual reality here.
Do you think, Bart, that it's intentional, or do you think...
Who cares what Bart thinks? He doesn't even know the literature. He thinks I'm wrong because he doesn't even understand what the Bellevue study did. He's saying, and you'll hear it later on, that he says I'm lying, that the Bellevue study didn't measure calcium. See, he hasn't read the paper, so he thinks what I'm saying is wrong, but he doesn't even know. And again, when I say that there's more ammonia produced, he made a video that I'm wrong, that ammonia is toxic, and there isn't more that forms because the pKa of ammonium is 2 points or more higher than the pH. Well, he was wrong. So he thinks I'm wrong, but actually he's wrong. He laces into me mostly that I state acid is excreted in the urine. But he was wrong. He didn't know that uric acid is excreted, and also he didn't really truly understand that when I meant net acid excretion, I meant the weak acids, ammonium and dihydrogen phosphate. He's not really understanding. That's the problem too. He lacks knowledge on certain things. He didn't know about the uric acid. He's not understanding what I mean when I say net acid excretion. So it's not that I'm doing anything wrong. It's Bart not understanding and also misinterpreting.
He's actually trying to get to the truth and research and fight. Is it a case of, I mean, there are lots of influencers out there who I believe are steering the ship in the wrong direction for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
I get the impression from James that he's trying to look for the research.
Oh God, he's trying.
Well, yeah, at least I've read it and read it correctly, unlike you, Bart.
He's very bloody trying. Very trying indeed.
He seems genuine.
Yes.
And again, it's like I agree on like 90% maybe of what he says, but this I don't.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting when we get into what he's got to say, and we can maybe look into that. But it's
look, I think he's genuine. I think he's a bloke who is trying to understand the reality. However, what he's got wrong is that he's taken a position that is fundamentally flawed.
It's not. I've shown you here that it's not fundamentally flawed. It's the sulfate And you had stated that that is the third of the fourth Stewart model suggestion that can independently and predictably alter pH. So you have misunderstood what the acid load is and how it is formed. Because if you understood that, you would understand that the Stewart model doesn't prove it wrong, that it falls within the Stewart model, and that electroneutrality, the law of electroneutrality, proves it correct.
Unsustainable, incorrect,
So from the
in fact.
ground up, you thinking it's wrong, you are wrong. That's the whole problem. You need to understand you've been wrong about thinking that I'm wrong fundamentally from the ground up, when I am correct fundamentally from the ground up. You must not have known that the hydronium ion formation is due to the sulfate, -2, -2 charged sulfates being released. Had you understood that, you probably wouldn't have attacked from the ground up, at least, being incorrect.
And he is now a...
So you technically probably should make an apology, at least from that perspective, that from that perspective, from the ground up on mechanisms, that it does fall within the Stewart model.
religious zealot of that position statement.
No, I am not a religious zealot of anything. Hence why I keep altering my views depending on where the evidence goes. You are just stuck on carnivore muscle meat has enough calcium. You're the zealot that refuses to shift your views. That is the difference between you and I. I will shift my views. I will not defend zero carb till I die.
Simply because he actually lacks...
No, simply because I'm willing to move with the evidence and understand the evidence.
Gourmet for less at Aldi makes you feel extra. It's an Aldi thing.
Using the right weight matters. The Body Pod lets you easily understand what is the fastest...
The integrity to...
False. So now I lack integrity. First you just said I was genuine and I'm doing it for the right reasons. Now I lack integrity.
change his tune and say, look...
Why would I change my tune on something I've proven you wrong on many different aspects? I'm happy to be proven wrong. If you can show me actual evidence proving me wrong, why would I still hold to this position? It's just all the evidence states that I'm correct. The metabolic ward studies show negative calcium balance and many other studies. So if it didn't, I wouldn't be promoting this. I wouldn't be backing it. I only back the evidence. I don't have some agenda. I don't do videos just for clicks like you.
Was wrong. I have published many times suggesting X, Y, and Z. I was wrong to do so. And I have been corrected by someone who has a superior understanding.
Yeah, someone who doesn't understand ammonia gets formed in the body and that we excrete uric acid. You have a superior understanding of this. That is laughable.
Particular field to myself, and
False.
as such, I think...
The field is dietary acid loads, which you have no knowledge on. Extrapolating your knowledge on the Stewart model to dietary acid loads and saying you're the expert and you know, that's the ego. That's the ego.
That person, me, that is...
I'm the only one that's published in this field. You have not.
And I am now correcting my tune.
Why would I correct my tune to someone that doesn't know what they're talking about and is wrong?
Instead of doing that, he doubles down on his nonsense.
It's not nonsense. I'll double down on the science every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
It's the demonstrably incorrect, false information.
Show. What is false? Can you name one thing that you can definitively prove wrong that I've said? That I haven't explained in further detail in other videos or through my publications.
And behaves no better than a schoolboy, frankly.
Well, how am I supposed to behave when you pick a fight over a year? You're going to get exactly what you dish out. So now you're complaining that I'm responding to you? Like, give me a break. Now you're the victim?
Yeah, it's...
Who has to outright lie about...
By the way, you're the one that just created this attack video of my podcast, so now I have to respond.
what I've said and misrepresent what I've said.
What have I misrepresented that you've said? You've misrepresented me, saying that I'm selling calcium supplements, saying all these other things. What have I misrepresented that you've said? You state it. You don't give us an example at all. Where's the example of where I've misrepresented what you've said?
To try and retain any kind of foothold.
False.
Yeah, I think it's important to...
He's not an evil person. He's just the most irritating
Well, I get that it's irritating because I'm showing a different opposing view, and you don't like being challenged. You have a huge ego. You are in certain aspects extremely smart, and I think because of that you have this inflated ego, and you in certain aspects are a Dunning-Kruger. You believe that you know more about dietary acid loads than me, despite I'm the only one that's even researched this field and published on it, and you have not. You might understand the Stewart model, which I give you. You understand that very well. I understand the Stewart model as well, but it does not supersede clinical studies and metabolic ward studies on low-grade acidosis from consuming a high amount of animal protein.
Arrogant and misinformed individual that I've come across in this particular
You're misinformed because you don't even understand ammonia is formed in the body and that we excrete uric acid. How am I the misinformed one? You've even stated you were misinformed about that I proved you right, that I had to teach you about that.
field.
I think his heart's in the right place.
Of course it's in the right place.
Yes, I agree.
And look, and I think he.
And okay, well, if Bart agrees to something positive about me, well, that's a good start.
I think he's incredibly knowledgeable with many things, but I think it's also important to what I believed when I came into a low carb ketogenic way of living. I was and this is I can't wait to get into the nitty gritty in regards to this, but that a debate or chat between the two of you.
I tried actually. I tried coming at Bart very kindly, sending him an email, sending him some of the studies of why my position is my position. He refused to even have a nice chat or an email back and forth. It was all about, I want to destroy you on my podcast. That was it. And so when I have someone that isn't even interested in sort of collaborating as like a colleague and understanding like my points of view first and kind of trying to tell me where he thinks I'm wrong, he just instantly wanted to debate. Then I don't want to associate myself with someone that's not willing to at least have some good online or offline chats. Like Rich, you were super kind. You were willing to hear my side of the view. I was willing to hear, what you had to say. And then sure, I would have been happy to do some type of discussion / debate with Bart. And I can show you, I can screenshots the emails that I sent him and his crazy responses back. Like he just, come on, I will destroy you, blah, blah, I'll rip you 7 new assholes, whatever. So it's like he doesn't even want to be friendly with me at all. So why would I go on a podcast when he doesn't even want to get to essentially understand my points of view?
I think would be incredible. And if I can chair that meeting in regards to, let's see if we can make it happen.
Well, I'm willing any day of the week and twice on Sundays. If James wants to front up and actually deal with litigating the actual...
This would actually be pretty bad for you on a live debate. It would be very bad for you.
Underpinning physiochemical basis of his argument.
well, we know you don't understand the physiochemical basis, so...
And his lack of scientific rigor in...
False. You don't even read the studies that you state you have read, and you make false accusations about me saying that the Bellevue study didn't measure calcium, and I'm going to show you that it did.
Supporting
so you make false statements all the time.
His posit as to what the prognostic value of what he's saying is any day of the week. That'll be great. But in the meantime, we are stuck yet again with correcting James's errors.
You don't correct anything. I've corrected many errors of yours.
Yet again, while he's not here to defend himself.
I'm right here. I'm going to defend myself.
Again. To which, what he will do is respond by making another video.
For sure.
Which no one will watch, by the way, because he doesn't get much.
Exactly right. I don't care about views. I just care about, what the evidence shows.
On his YouTube channel at all, where he will ignore everything that we have said today again.
No, I'm not going to ignore it. I'm going to rip it apart.
Repeat his same argument again.
Well, I have to keep repeating it because you don't even understand how it works. In the Stewart model, you would support it. You absolute buffoon.
Tapping the same erroneous papers.
I'm going to have to, apparently, because you don't even read them.
Again, as if we haven't already knocked over that.
You haven't knocked over it. You haven't even read the papers, not even one. You didn't even respond to, I've done now 3 videos covering the studies. Please show me where you've done a response to where I cover the actual clinical studies. You have yet to do that. I wonder why.
That's what he will do. Promise you.
I'm going to have to keep doing it.
But anyway, let's go through the exercise. Let's make some progress because time.
Please.
Let's chip
Showing
away.
this, and how if you don't consume like dairy, etc., a muscle meat carnivore diet will put you into negative calcium balance.
That's a statement of fact that James has just made, which cannot be supported.
Why can't it be supported? We'll go through the Bellevue study.
He said if you don't eat dairy or some form of calcium,
That a muscle meat carnivore diet will put you in a negative calcium balance. That's what the metabolic ward studies show.
a muscle meat and organs and fat only diet will put you into negative calcium balance. That's what James just
That's what the metabolic ward studies have shown. So show me a study refuting it.
said right there, wasn't it? Okay, that is false, James.
How? How is it false?
There is no support extant anywhere for that claim.
How?
And anecdotally, I can point you to any number of people.
Anecdotally, you cannot prove someone is in or not in positive calcium balance. So you trying to state that you can prove me wrong from an anecdote makes no sense. You can't prove negative calcium balance or not. You need a metabolic ward study and a balance study to do it. I mean, do you see these trying to use anecdotes to state that metabolic ward studies are wrong on this? You can't use anecdotes to prove a metabolic ward study wrong. It's the other way around. That's how scientific rigor works.
People who have been eating such a diet, some of them for multiple decades, one of them into their 7th decade of doing so, and she is not a puddle on the floor.
Well, first of all, you're referring to Maggie, who is a huge outlier. She's like a Sean Baker of women. She even herself said that she was picked on for having boyish physique. She's like 5'10", 5'11". She's been living on a farm and, doing tremendous, like basically in her own way resistance exercise by doing all that farm work. And she's a complete outlier compared to an average woman. So her peak bone mass was probably way, way higher than a typical woman because she's like 5'10", 5'11". The average height of a woman is like 5 foot. She's almost 6 feet tall. She's taller than me. So like you can't put in, we have no idea if she's consuming bicarbonate in her water, which Bart says he does consume bicarbonate in his water. So again, that would offset some of the acid load. So you can't point to one person and be like, that wouldn't even prove if she's in positive balance or not. So that doesn't make any sense.
Or with no bones.
When did I say someone's not going to have any bones?
How about Rick Rodriguez?
Rick Rodriguez has stated that he made his own yogurt, that he consumed dairy. I'm almost 100% positive. I'm pretty sure I have a screenshot of him saying that. If I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure he makes his own yogurt, or at least did for a while.
Never mind Maggie, let's look at Rick. 40 years.
Yes, let's look at Rick.
Not a
Let's
puddle
actually
on the floor.
what did he actually
How
consume?
about any number of us around somewhere between...
Well, you stated there's bicarbonate in your water. So, again, show me your balance study that you're actually in positive balance.
10 to 15 year mark, not puddles of
When did I say you're going to be a puddle?
mess on the floor, because Emma,
When did I say that within 10 years you're going to be a puddle on the floor? Do you see what I'm saying? He's putting words in my mouth. He's saying that I'm saying you're going to be a puddle on the floor after 10 years of eating carnivore. I've never said that. I said that the metabolic ward studies have shown that if you eat a muscle meat carnivore diet, it puts you in negative calcium balance. You like that or you don't, but stop putting words in my mouth like I'm saying you're going to be a puddle on the floor.
bones have dissolved without consuming any significant amount of dairy or worrying about calcium or acid in any way, shape, or form. It's almost like this idea that James has that this will happen if you don't buy the supplements yourself.
It's almost like you actually need a balance study to confirm yes or no, and that you're not just going to simply dissolve into nothing after 10 years.
By the way, it's almost like this idea doesn't stack up.
What idea? So where did I say you're going to be a puddle on the floor at 10 years? See, that's the problem. The idea that you're not focusing on is calcium balance. Am I wrong or right? On the screen, it says negative calcium balance. Where does it say puddle on the floor?
In reality, the objective reality in
So
which
the objective reality is we're talking about this topic, negative calcium balance, not being a puddle on the floor.
we find ourselves. James, of course, thinks you can solve everything by tapping a so-called science paper that absolutely proves your point,
Well, you got to at least read the paper bar to even understand where I'm coming from.
which ignores entirely
Well, in fact, there's several papers discussing the Bellevue study. I doubt you even read one.
the fact that existence itself is metaphysical.
Oh, here we go.
In fact, if you look at the physics as we understand them currently, and you follow that rabbit.
Can we please get back onto topic? Why are we talking about can we prove our existence or not? Do you see what I'm saying? See, Bart's trying to prove that we don't even exist. He would argue that there's no proof that we exist. Do you see what I'm saying? That's the level of evidence he requires. He believes that there's not enough evidence to prove we exist. Whether we do or whether there is enough evidence, quote unquote, that we do or not. Do you see the silliness and the foolishness of it? That's what he demands. That's why he'll never believe anything, because he doesn't even believe we exist. That there's no evidence to support it.
Or all the way to the bottom, what you will find is that the mathematical descriptions of our existence, our reality, physics, demand absolutely that we do not exist.
Great, Bart. We're not having this discussion. Great. Thanks for proving us correct.
Let alone that we can prove anything.
Right. We can't prove anything correct. Okay.
But basically what James is doing...
Are you trying to tell me that you cannot measure calcium in food, you can't measure calcium in stools, you can't measure calcium in urine, you can't measure calcium in sweat, and you can't get a very, very close estimate of if someone is in calcium balance or not? Of course you can. This is insane to try and be like, well, we can't prove that we exist, so James can't prove anything. Do you see how ridiculous that sounds?
is deifying the process of science and making out like it's capable of doing stuff that it absolutely
It's absolutely capable of determining if someone is in positive or negative calcium balance. 100% of metabolic ward study is able to do that if the food is homogenized and the calcium is actually measured in the food. And you actually measure 24-hour urine and stools, which they did in the study. You're welcome. We're done here.
is not capable of doing.
It is 100% capable of doing that. The Bellevue study is 100% capable, and the two other metabolic ward studies were also capable of doing that.
And that is irresponsible. It's misleading at
What's
best.
misleading is you demanding that we don't even, or stating that we don't even have evidence that we exist. Therefore, anybody that tries to say we exist is wrong. So then I also must be wrong, because we can't even prove existence. So how could I prove that someone's in negative calcium balance? Do you see how ridiculous this argument is?
And it's downright dishonest at worst.
Yeah, I'm just being dishonest.
Anyway, there it is.
We're only 48 minutes in on
nutshell.
this.
But hopefully we'll get to some actual...
Yeah, can we please move on?
In
Bart?
list a year. So we do have metabolic ward studies, the Bellevue study with
Okay, the Bellevue study...
So you're laughing because you're trying to think of what to say because you haven't read the study.
Do you know this one, Richard? Do you know the Bellevue study?
Yes, I do indeed.
Right, n equals what?
1.
No.
Well,
two.
1 or 2,
Two
depending on how you
in
look at
this
it.
case, yeah.
So what? I would take an N of 1, even though it's an N of 2, of a well-performed metabolic ward study than a 100,000 observational study. So you're gonna tap a number. Give me a break. There's also 2 other metabolic ward studies that have one of them is 10 patients and I think the other's 15 or something.
Yeah. Stefansson and his mate, who actually did a metabolic ward lock-in for 3 months, not for a year.
First of all, it was a metabolic lock-in for 3 months and 3 weeks.
It was a year
For Anderson.
of follow-up.
It was over a year of follow-up. And they also had to go back into the hospital and get the acetone levels in the urine measured to make sure they were being adherent to the diet, which of course they were. They wanted to prove that this all-meat diet was healthy because they ate it in the Arctic.
Only 3 months in the lab.
No, false. 3 months and 3 weeks. You didn't read the study.
And they made a bunch of measurements on a bunch of things, like outcomes of levels of things in the urine and lab reports of this, that, and the other thing and whatever else. But
Well, what is it? This, that, and the other what? You didn't read it, so that's why you're just saying this, that, and the other thing. You don't even know what they measured.
no look at any hard health outcome of any kind.
Well, what are you going to find on a hard health outcome after 1 year?
And then James turns around and says, that's absolute proof of what I'm talking about. N equals 2.
No, there's also 2 other metabolic ward studies, and N equals much more than 2. And then there's 13 other clinical studies that aren't metabolic wards that also show the same thing. So N equals like 16 studies.
Over a 3-month.
False, not over a 3-month. They came back at month 11, and Anderson got 3 weeks of a metabolic ward and calcium balances again. So 1 year.
Observation period, because that's all it was.
False. You're wrong. You didn't read the study. You have no idea what you're talking about.
Sure. Extrapolated out to a year under no control or observation.
Oh,
So invalid.
no control or observation, really? They didn't go back to the hospital and they didn't get the acetone levels measured in the urine? I mean, Stephenson specifically in his writing state that that's what they did. They went back to the hospital weekly or bi-weekly to give 24-hour urines and have certain things measured throughout the study to ensure dietary adherence. You don't know what you're talking about because you haven't studied this field. And I will tear you to shreds.
As a science assertion. No look at any heart health outcomes of any kind, and no look at anything longer than 1 year.
Well, it was longer than 1 year. Both were on the diet, on the all-meat diet for longer than a year, first of all. So nice try.
Yeah, James turns around and says, this is something you need to be worried about over multiple decades.
When did I say that? When did I say that you have to? It's a cautionary note, and basically if the negative calcium balance does continue, there may be issues. And there may be issues. The hydronium ion release will continue. The sulfate release and the hydronium ion release will continue. So that's an increased production of ammonia. Yes. That is, increase in hyperfiltration at the kidney level and increases in GFR. There's been 2 clinical studies in humans in those who have good renal reserve that are, younger adults in their early 20s showing such an increase in GFR and hyperfiltration leading to albuminuria, like doubling of albuminuria. So yeah, there's not zero harms to this.
There are a few things with this as well also. I mean, when he's finished saying what he's got to say, I think there are a couple
we're 50 minutes in. You haven't even let me stated what I need to state.
Of confounders, but it's yeah.
But James is absolutely obsessed with this ridiculous
Well, at least I've read the Bellevue study.
pseudoscientific piece of naturalistic observation called the Bellevue study.
Well, at least I've read it.
Taps it every single time.
I'll tap it as much as I want.
And makes out like it's absolute inviolate canon. Proof of...
Nope. When you take into account all the other studies, the 15 other studies, the 2 other metabolic ward studies, plus the other 13, yeah, it all paints a very clear picture.
His point. No, it isn't, James.
Yes, it is. Right. You just think it's N of 2 because you haven't read the research.
It's rubbish.
No, it's not.
It's poorly conducted.
How is it poorly conducted? Explain specifically how the Bellevue study was poorly conducted when it was probably one of the best studies ever performed in regards to rigor.
Ill-disciplined claptrap that does not...
How? Oh, just because you say it is? Give us examples.
...inform on heart health outcomes or likelihood of health outcomes.
Well, we're not talking about heart health outcomes. Can you stick to the topic of negative calcium balance, please? This guy's like a squirrel. He sees a squirrel and he's like off to a different topic.
In any representative population of human beings anywhere on the planet, over any period of time longer than 3 months.
Well, we just said it was over a year. It was like 375 days, to be precise.
Let alone a year, let alone multiple decades.
But there were no downstream deleterious effects of them consuming meat for that period anyway.
Well, there was, though. They were in negative calcium balance, and their urine was extremely acidic, which in certain individuals, that can increase the supersaturation of oxalate and uric acid. It will do that, and that can lead to a kidney stone if someone's taking like vitamin C or collagen. So to say there's no, I have screenshots of people where this has happened, where they upped their protein intake, and that was the only change in what they did, and they were taking either collagen or vitamin C, and it threw them into kidney stones. So you can't say there was no harms. In the real world, there have been harms with people increasing their animal protein intake, acidifying the urine, and that increasing the supersaturation of oxalate and causing oxalate kidney stones.
I mean, I know what he's going to go on to say, obviously, because I've did the recording with him, but
yeah.
Let's see what he's got to say, and then...
All right, let's do that.
Let's do that.
Please.
Stephenson and Anderson, the famous Arctic explorers, it put them in negative calcium balance for over a year. So in my opinion, I'm focusing on how can we optimize keto carnivore, and not just because it increases your toolbox. Like, I feel like it's just you can keep saying eat less carbs, eat less carbs, eat less carbs, but that's not a good toolbox.
Why not, James?
Because nutrition is highly complex. And despite you wanting to simplify it and stating that just a muscle meat diet is enough, we have metabolic wart studies saying muscle meat diet doesn't even keep you in calcium balance. And that's the whole point. You want to simplify everything, but there's so much nuance to all of this. And so if a diet can't even keep you in balance on an essential mineral, then I think that should be discussed.
Why is it not a good toolbox? Because
I just explained that.
it is. It's a great toolbox.
It's one tool that can work for some people for a certain period of time. And then it becomes not useless, but you start needing more tools for a lot of people. I'm here to go above and beyond just a low carb diet and above and beyond just telling people just eat low carb to fix everything. Because I'm trying to, again, increase the toolbox and help people out who are suffering on low carb diets. To ignore the many, many people that carnivore hasn't worked over a long period of time, including myself, is just foolish.
Eat less carbs, don't eat any seed oils at all. That's most of the battle.
I thrive on zero carb. Like I've tried all sorts. I've tried back feeding carbs.
Talking, actually.
But anyway, where we go?
You want more tools in your toolbox. So that's essentially what I'm trying to do, is figure out how we can improve carnivore.
It doesn't need improving. We've been doing
it. Does, because if it did need improving, so many people wouldn't be stopping carnivore and increasing carb intake. Like Carnivore MD, Carnivore Aurelius, myself. It needs improving.
it
For many people.
hundreds of thousands of years.
Again, see, you don't think it needs improving. You don't believe any of the anecdotes.
And actually millions when you look at the development of species.
No, we weren't eating grocery store muscle meat for millions of years, and you don't even understand the difference between that and wild meat.
Not quite yet human that have become humans. It's already optimized over.
Again, so, your false belief that evolution proves you correct to eating a modern day carnivore diet, grocery store muscle meat that's been, hung for 2 weeks and frozen. Not the same meat.
Very, very long time.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree. I think it's, people think that I'm wedded to these words, keto and carnivore. I'm what I'd class as zero carb, but there's still residual carb. I do eat organ meats. And, there's glycogen found in organ meat and the muscle meat. But it's, I'm in pursuit of optimal health. I want to be the healthiest and fittest that I can be. And I want to live a long and prosperous life. I want to be able to compete in whatever sport it is that I'm competing in and be competitive. But I want to be healthy and fit doing it. So
I want to give Spartan a try, but I feel it's too expensive.
We hear you. And this holiday, we decided to drop the price.
This particular lever pulling that
He's saying is, all of that stuff aside, really, if you eat nothing but meat, organs, and fat, your bones will dissolve. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, essentially.
Well, no, I'm stating that the metabolic wart studies have shown that it puts you in negative calcium balance, and that some studies that have measured, bone breakdown markers have shown increases and decreases in bone formation markers.
Right.
Which I disagree with based on a number of things.
Because it's fundamentally, utterly ridiculous. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, outside of lipids cause heart disease and the earth is flat, both of which are...
Well, there's still no proof that having, an elevated amount of lipoproteins, I don't believe is the primary driver, but when you have that turbulent flow, the more lipoproteins that you have, you're increasing the more chances that they can get into under the subendothelium. And lowering them is going to decrease how many get into, the subendothelium and oxidize. So, I think it's actually naive to say that there's no play, because if you didn't have any lipoproteins, then none would get into the subendothelium and oxidize and cause atherosclerosis. It is a part of the process. So, to just completely state that, elevated lipoproteins have no role, I think is pretty naive.
Ridiculous comments, both of which are demonstrably incorrect, as is his assertion around the dissolution of your skeletal structures attendant with eating meat and fat. Anyway, yeah, let's hope he actually gets... Do we get to any of the actual science?
Well, will you actually let me speak? We're now an hour in, and I've only had a couple minutes to speak.
We do.
Let's press
Yeah,
play
so
and see.
kind of a few things. So the most carnivorous population that we know of, right, would be the Inuit. I have published in the academic literature on the Inuit several times.
So what?
I've researched their diet, whether it was from Greenland, Alaska.
So you went and sat with them and watched them, did you, James?
No, so what I'm about to say is that I looked at the publications from doctors who have lived and studied the Inuit for decades, like Otto Schaefer, and reviewed their actual writings. So people that actually lived with the Inuit.
James, and you sat and watched them in the last century?
No,
Did you?
No, I didn't. That would be foolish.
I've researched their diet, he says.
Yeah, I've looked at the publications of doctors that lived and studied the Inuit for decades.
See how that's just meaningless noise?
You see how he doesn't even give me a chance to actually state, which I'm about to, of what that research actually is?
To try and big himself up?
No, I'm not. See, you have the ego. I'm not trying to build myself up.
Canada, looking at actually the doctors that lived with them and studied them for decades.
The doctors?
Yeah, Otto Schaefer was one of the doctors that actually lived and studied the Inuit for over 20 years and published many papers on their diet.
What have doctors got to do with it?
Because they lived and studied with them. I just stated it. How are you not able to interpret what I just said?
And so one distinction too is that they would never avoid any edible plant food. So they would consume any edible Arctic plant food. They would consume the plant contents in the stomach. So one of the doctors who lived with the Inuit for 20 years said they actually cherished the plant matter in their stomachs. They would pass it around like appetizers, the Inuit, and they would go out at low tide and harvest like seaweed, kelp, etc. And they would, of course, store berries and nuts for winter.
Even if all of this is correct, the response to it is, so what?
The so what is that not even the most carnivorous population ever ate essentially zero carb, which is what current modern day carnivores are doing. They weren't just eating muscle meat and that's it. And so you can't use the Inuit as an example to support a muscle meat carnivore diet. That's the whole point. That's what I'm trying to say.
What does that have to do with the point at hand, which is if you eat nothing but muscle meat, organs, and fat, will your bones dissolve?
We're not talking about bones dissolving. We're talking about negative calcium balance.
To which the answer still remains no.
How do you know that? How is it no? You know for a fact that bones aren't breaking down? That there isn't some breakdown? Just because you're not falling into a puddle doesn't mean that bone breakdown isn't occurring. Because based on the measurements of bone breakdown, the N telepeptide and C telepeptide, bone breakdown is increasing. You might not be dissolving all your bones into nothing and collapsing into a puddle, which is insane to try to say if that's not happening, then I'm wrong. Do you see what he's doing there?
They won't. Still.
It's an icebox in the Arctic, so you can store plant material and you can eat plants all year round, even though they're not growing, let's say, in the winter, because you can just store them, harvest them in the summer. So looking over...
Yes, I'm always wandering around the grass.
Carbs.
It just doesn't make sense. 50 to 60, it's not going to, as we said earlier, a top end is...
50 to 60 grams of carbs is because I'm including the plant matter. And I'm not saying you're getting 50 to 60 grams just through glycogen.
It's going to be 10 grams, I think, in my opinion. But that's based on the extra glycogen from the cold weather. So it's still only 10 grams. I don't know. I can't see anything I can't find anything that would indicate it's 50 to 60. 10 grams, I think, at most.
What I said is the Inuit get more glycogen because the cold of the Arctic can shut down glycogen breakdown.
That's the point, isn't it? The point here
upon death
is that what we're dealing with here from James is complete speculation.
No, it's not speculation. Cold at minus 18 Celsius can completely shut down glycogen breakdown upon death. So the meat that the Inuit consumed would have had more glycogen.
And it's a speculation about a bunch of things that are ostensibly irrelevant to the moot at hand, which once again is, will meat, fat, and organs cause your bones to dissolve if you eat nothing but that for multiple decades.
That's where we need to get to then.
We're still waiting for anything whatsoever on that.
more around what they got through glycogen and through plant material. It could have been higher in the summer and maybe lower a little bit in the winter, but they were never just consuming, let's say, grocery store muscle meat that's depleted of glycogen and no plant material. So a modern day carnivore, unless you're consuming meat that's been butchered within less than 6 hours, is going to be different than fresh meat that was consumed from the Inuit.
Right, so we're not Inuits. Inuits not us. They have different lifestyles to what we have. Jolly good.
Have less glycogen. It's also going to be more acidic.
No.
Yes, the meat actually does become more acidic because post-mortem, the pH goes from like 7.2 down to like 6. So it does become more acidic because the bicarb gets depleted and the hydronium ion concentration increases. So that is false that he's saying I'm false.
False.
It's not false. Anyone can go look up the change in pH of muscle meat after death, and you'll see that it becomes more acidic. The pH of the muscle is actually more acidic. There's more hydronium ions, and there's less to no bicarbonate.
Absolutely false. I know.
No, you're false. Again, this is you can prove Bart wrong here by looking up what happens to the pH of muscle meat after death. You can see that it becomes more acidic. So this is another point where he's saying I'm false, and he's 100% easily provable. Look it up. False.
Like James, I'm quite predictable, I guess.
You are. You're predictable. You say things that are completely wrong, and you say things that I'm saying something is false when you're actually wrong. What you're saying is false. You do it all the time.
In that, when somebody says calories, I'm going to say, no, not calories.
No. This has nothing to do with calories. This is to do with the pH and the hydronium ion concentration of meat upon death.
No, they've got nothing to do with metabolism.
So that has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
They're completely irrelevant. When someone says this is more acidic, and the meaning there being that either it has a pH which is of an acidic nature, or that it affects the body pH in some way, then I'm going to stop it and say, no, that's false, because, well, it's false.
How? It's false because it's false? That makes sense.
That's why I'm going to stop it and say it's false, because it is false.
No, it's not. It's not.
Demonstrably, absolutely, unassailably false.
It's unassailably false to say that the pH of muscle meat does not decrease and become more acidic upon death.
In fact, the human body maintains...
We're talking about post-mortem changes right now, not the human body trying to maintain a pH. In trying to do so, there are many other harms that happen. Just because something can hold something constant, just because the body can hold the blood magnesium constant, doesn't mean that the body isn't depleted in magnesium. Okay? Something you need to understand here. Homeostasis does not mean there aren't adaptive harms that are happening to maintain that homeostasis. You don't even understand that basic level of nutrition and physiology.
Its pH of all its fluid pools within a very narrow range.
It does so within a very narrow range at the expense of many other things like bone breakdown, at the expense of like tissue breakdown, at the expense of increasing production of more ammonia, increasing loss of electrolytes, etc. Hyperfiltration at the kidney level. There are adaptive harms to being able to maintain a normal pH when you're dumping a ton of negatively charged sulfates and creating more hydronium ions, eating a ton of animal protein. What do you not understand about this?
At all times.
Imagine being able to build anything just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
Up until the point immediately before that, which you will experience your death. It's called homeostasis.
This is definitely going to have to be at least 3 or 4 parts, because I'm not going to sit here and do this all in just one part 2. It's going to have to be like 3. It's probably going to be 4 parts.
It's a thing. It exists. It's real. It stops us from dying. It stops our pH from going out of...
Great, you don't die, but it doesn't mean that other harms aren't happening. Just because we don't... Again, you see how he loves to... Like, if you didn't melt into a puddle, if you didn't die, that there's no harms, right? That's just, again, foolishness.
Range, thus killing us.
You don't have the pH to go to a range that kills you for there to be harms.
Even if we do eat nothing but meat, fat, and organs, homeostasis still works, because actually pH homeostasis does not rely on what you eat particularly. Because remember, there are 4 control levers on your pH of any fluid pool anywhere in the universe at any time. 4.
Are you saying anything?
Not 5 or 6, not 102.
No, there is actually, it isn't 4. We already said lungs and kidneys, so it is 6 actually.
None of them are whether or not you eat nothing but meat, organs, and fat.
You're going to say things.
They are the temperature, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide acting on that fluid, the net milliequivalent values of all the positively and negatively strongly dissociated ions.
Ta-da! Dissociated anions increasing. Thank you.
And the net negative electrochemical charge added to the fluid pool by the anions expressed on the surfaces of all the proteins. Nothing else. Just those four still.
No, still kidneys and lungs, and still dietary intake effects. So that's 7 things that actually can independently shift the pH. So you're wrong. Again.
Nothing's changed.
Correct, nothing's changed. You won't ever learn.
Nothing's changed. That's still a fact.
I'm still right, and you're still wrong.
Whether James wants to accept that fact.
Whether you want to accept it or not.
No. All of those facts are based in first principles of...
No, Stewart isn't based in first principles. It's a model. A law of electroneutrality is based in first principles. The law of electroneutrality states this is correct. We're done.
Physics as we understand them. Laws of conservation. Le Chatelier's principle comes into play. An understanding of dynamic equilibrium.
You don't understand how acid-base balance works in regard to the diet. And Stewart model never discussed it. He never took that into account in any of his publications. Why don't you admit that?
Useful to get your head around all this stuff. All things I've actually covered in quite some detail on my channel for that.
Yeah, right. You've covered the same things and you're not understanding what I'm trying to say. That's the problem. That's why you keep doing videos, because you're not understanding the fundamental flaws in your trying to pick apart where I'm coming from.
That's why I'm not doing it right here, right now. And also because he's actually not talking about the science. He's just waffling and obfuscating.
Well, would you let me talk about it?
And making up great stories without much emphasis on any of the dragons.
So essentially what happens is bicarbonate is contained about 1,000 milligrams of bicarb per kilogram of fresh muscle.
Yes, so?
There's also bicarbonate in blood and interstitial fluid at about 1,800 milligrams per liter.
Yes, so?
So the Inuit or anyone consuming a animal within, let's say, 4 hours would have had a lot more bicarbonate.
No, because you see, here's the thing. Bicarbonate, the concentration of bicarbonate in any given fluid pool
is it dependent
that is exposed to the atmosphere at a surface anywhere is a dependent variable. You cannot independently set the concentration of bicarbonate by adding nor by removing bicarbonate.
That's false. You can, acutely. And we're talking about an animal dying that the bicarb is lost. What are you
Le Chatelier's principle still applies.
Doesn't apply to a dead animal.
And it still works via the bicarbonate buffering system, which at its open ends has carbon dioxide entering or leaving that fluid pool and going through a series of dynamic equilibria, producing a bunch of things, including bicarbonate.
Is respiration working when you're dead, Bart? So is the bicarbonate buffering system working when you're dead? We're talking about the bicarb being depleted in a dead animal.
So it can be added or removed.
And the hydronium ions increasing upon death. And thus, muscle meat that we eat, which has been hung for 2 weeks, the grocery store muscle meat, is actually a more acidic piece of meat. It has a pH of like 6 instead of 7.4, and it has essentially no bicarbonate compared to 1,000 milligrams of bicarbonate per fresh kilogram muscle meat.
From the solution.
Again, you don't even understand that. You're getting this wrong too.
Via what happens energetically in the dynamic equilibria, such that, according to Le Chatelier's principle, when you try to perturb an equilibrium, it will resist any attempt that you make to perturb it.
That's in a living animal. We're talking about dead.
Now, when
post-mortem,
you add some bicarbonate, there will be a change in the bicarbonate concentration.
Which will change the hydronium concentration as the equilibrium shifts over to CO2 and water.
But not the predictable one you would have expected.
Oh, well, just because it's not exactly predictable doesn't mean that it doesn't have a clinically meaningful change in pH.
And not in the amount that you would have expected
So
by talking.
Who cares if it's not exactly as expected?
About the amount of intake. It's much less than that. And it's just a rebalancing of everything in that equilibrium.
That's according to you.
System that causes this to occur. Bicarbonate is ostensibly and effectively volatile because it can exit or enter the fluid via carbon dioxide
We're talking about a dead animal. They're not breathing.
gas. We're done.
We're done. You don't even know what we're talking about.
You are wrong, James.
I am not wrong.
You cannot independently set the concentration of bicarbonate.
You cannot independently, but you can increase bicarb levels by taking exogenous bicarb, and you can increase the pH and alkalinize the body and offset the hydronium ions forming. If you take exogenous bicarbonate, you increase your bicarb levels, then you can buffer more of the hydronium ion released, and less will get into the capillaries, acidifying the interstitial fluid and breaking down the bone, hence the benefit. You don't understand what you're talking about because you've never researched this topic.
By eating some. Sorry about that.
Sorry about nothing. You know nothing about this topic.
That's just physics. Okay?
No, it's not.
Take it up with Le Chatelier.
No. Take it up with the dead animal.
Take it up with Amy Noether, who came up with the laws of conservation in the first place. Or you could just sit there and say, but K is wrong. But K is wrong.
If you're wrong, I'm going to tell you you're wrong. And you're wrong.
Without any reference to the actual facts.
Go look up the pH change post-mortem of muscle meat.
Those facts being what I've just given
That's a fact, what I'm stating.
you. Those are the facts.
Facts are grocery store muscle meat is more acidic than fresh meat.
Still. I'm glad we got into some science.
Jeez.
There it is.
Okay. You got into nothing. You're not even talking about science applying to what I'm saying.
There it is. No, bicarbonate is not an independent variable.
Even if it's not independent, okay, and it's dependent on other things, we've already shown how it can improve athletic performance by boosting bicarbonate levels, how it can alkalinize the body acutely and help offset the acid load, the hydronium ions, if you have taken bicarbonate within a close time frame of consuming animal protein.
It's dependent.
Who cares? Who cares? Does it raise bicarb levels? Yes. Will that then help to buffer the hydronium ions? Yes. Right? So will that reduce the acidosis? Yes. So what are we talking about?
Oh, righty. I'm over on the wrong screen again. Let's come over here and press the button.
It always came with muscle meat, but now it doesn't. So I take bicarbonate to offset the acid load of
Now,
animals.
what acid load is that? 'Cause
Oh my gosh. Again, you don't understand. That's the problem. You don't know what I'm talking about. It's this. It's right here. These hydronium ions that are being formed from the sulfate. Gosh, it's not that difficult, Bart.
still, the only acid that's coming out.
Still, when I say acid, I mean the hydronium ions. Not a strong acid like sulfuric acid. That's what you're making up in your own head.
Out of your urine, and in very small amounts is uric.
Right.
And
you, how did you learn about the uric acid from me?
What possible problem could there be in excreting uric acid in your urine?
I don't know. Uric acid kidney stones?
Because, see, that's a bit of a giveaway. Urine.
No. Just because urine and uric acid sound alike, that's not any type of giveaway.
Uric acid, it's kind of what's supposed to happen.
Kind of what's supposed to happen? Well, that's good science.
It's kind of what's happened all along. That's kind of the design biologically.
Doesn't mean, just because we have a design doesn't mean that there's no harms in doing something.
And if you take bicarbonate to offset acid, well, that's silly. Number one, because there is no acid to offset.
Again, the acid, for the millionth time, is the hydronium ions. So there is something to offset. That's what makes the body more acidic. How do you not understand this?
And number two, because you can't independently set the value of bicarbonate.
Who cares if you can't independently set it? Can you spike bicarb levels enough to help neutralize the hydronium ions that form? Yes, and hence reduce the harms from the acidosis.
By consuming some.
So
because it will exit the system according to the Chateaubriand's principle as carbon dioxide gas still.
You can't even wrap your head around what I'm talking about.
I didn't believe I'd ever lose those last few pounds until I stepped on the scale. Factor is my favorite hack for losing weight.
Is this going up some flagpoles?
It's not, actually. It clearly hasn't gone up your flagpole. You still don't understand what I mean when I say acid load.
Sorry about that, James.
We're all waiting for it to go up your flagpole.
It's just the actual physics.
It's not.
God, he's screaming at his screen right now, isn't he?
I
He's
am,
screaming
because
at
you
it.
can't even wrap your head around what the acid load is. That's why I'm screaming at the screen.
Yeah. But tell us about the Bellevue study again, James,
please, I
because
would
you
love
haven't
to.
mentioned that 3 million times yet.
Well, you haven't even
Foods.
read
And when
it
I say
once.
that, when we consume animal protein,
If you read the Bellevue study once, you'd understand where I'm coming from.
it's higher in sulfur-containing amino acids.
Yes.
It's called cysteine and methionine.
Yes, that's correct, James. Well done.
And methionine, as you know, gets converted to cysteine in
Sure.
the transsulfuration pathway. I've heard
Yes.
you say transsulfuration pathway, so I know that you know this.
Yes.
And then cysteine gets oxidized in the liver,
Yes.
and it releases hydronium ions. It's H3O plus is how the protein.
No, H3O plus hydronium ions are evolved from the water, James.
Okay, first of all, they can evolve from other things than just water. They can evolve from the buffers, like bicarbonate, which is HCO3. Okay, so the hydronium, the hydrogen can be pulled from bicarbonate. It can also be pulled from hydrogen and dihydrogen phosphate, not just water. So you think you know more than me, but you don't.
That's where they come from.
False. They can also come from the buffers, like bicarbonate and what I just said, the dihydrogen phosphate and hydrogen phosphate.
Not from amino acids of any kind, actually.
No, well, it's because of the sulfate from the amino acid why this is even happening. Let's drill this into your head, Bart, so you can really understand what the heck is going on here.
And the concentration of hydronium ions, well, actually, that's very parsimonious. It's actually the effective rate of the equilibrium of it that we're talking about with pH. That is the thing that's determined by those 4 control variables, and only those 4, none of which are...
Remember 7? There's 7 control variables: lungs, kidneys, and dietary intake, which Stuart never took into account. Okay?
sulfur-containing amino acids, are they?
Well, they are. They are sulfur-containing amino acids because it forms a negatively charged sulfate, you buffoon.
Now, a large amount of sulfur-containing amino acids...
Well, guess what? We already talked about that, right? 6 sextillion amount of 7 times 10 to the 21st power is how many you're getting. Way more than 1 trillion sulfate molecules. So thanks for playing.
Existing in a fluid pool could affect the pH.
You just proved me right. It could. A lot of sulfate molecules could affect the pH. Well, it does. It's a lot. I think 7 sextillion is a lot. 7 times 10 to the 21st power bar. Is that enough for you?
All the other 3 control variables were also controlled.
You owe me a formal apology.
Such that Le Chatelier's principle didn't work, wasn't at play. Sadly for James, Le Chatelier's principle is at play. And it does work.
It's not. It does work, and it proves me correct. Thank you.
And the other 3 do react to counteract the change that you would expect. Still.
Doesn't matter. Do they react in time, instantaneously? Absolutely not. So if you have 4 hours of elevated hydronium ions getting into the interstitial fluid, in the cell, in the blood, there can be harms, right? How quickly does that happen, Bar? Do you have any idea? Because it doesn't happen within 4 hours. At least not fully. At least not fully. Because if you look at even the blood pH, which has buffers, the interstitial fluid doesn't. It can't buffer the hydronium ions nearly as well as the interstitial fluid. If you look at 24-hour multiple measurements of pH across the board, you'll see that it significantly drops with a p-value of 0.002, even with just not even that high of an animal protein intake. So